Welcome to Tuesdays Behind the Behind the Screen. That is a completely different show, and I'm pretty sure that's the one that is going to be where I interview my Torg players for their interest in the Tharcold campaign. But we're going to get into that today. So Behind the Screen is a show that I do every Tuesday and Thursday, which is sit down, we talk, we drink coffee. Remember, C's the GM. We talk about games, we talk about reviews, board games, game design, all from with the lens, if you will, of a game designer. Now, I know we said we were going to start our Sword and Sorcery review today, but we're actually going to push that off until after Gen Con, because I'm getting ready for Gen Con, and Gen Con is going to be crazy. Slightly less crazy, thanks to being in the Best Bob timeline. Bob, as always, thank you, sir. You are a gentleman, a scholar, and an inspiration. So today I've been saying we're going to do an after-action report, and so I figured I would share what's going on in my games and see if anyone, we can tease anything out that I've learned. Hey, Grom, yes, we are going to we're going to push off the Sword and Sorcery review till after Gen Con, because we've got these two streams, and we're off for next week because of Gen Con, and then we'll be back after that, and we'll be starting the Sword and Sorcery one the Tuesday after Gen Con. But today we're doing an after-action report. I figured we'd talk, just hang out, relax. We had a great Deadlands session last night. It was amazing. John was an agent of chaos. Bob was the impeccable Leslie Crumb. Tank the Frank got to see summon ally put into good use. And the group discovered that the forest itself, the aspens of Colorado, Wyoming, what is also known as the Collective. If you've been in Colorado, you know that or Wyoming or anywhere where there are aspens, all aspen trees are one living organism. And so something is going on with the aspen trees in the horror at Headstone Hill, and it seems to be making pod people, replicants, if you will, of them. And so they fought a giant, terrible aspen that had bloated sacks filled with screaming heads and amber fluid. And if you followed me at all, you know how much I enjoy good body horror and good horror. And so that was just the people who wrote the horror at Headstone Hill. I don't know who came up with that monster. I referenced Matthew Cutter last night. Thank you for this adventure. It has been wonderful. So it was interesting because the group faced serious, overwhelming odds, and for the first time, I think they were actually scared about losing their characters. There were some amazing soak rolls, but towards the end of the night, there were no bennies left to soak. Sister May took 3 wounds from an exploding tree. She also took a wound from a piranha dog, which is like a carnivorous prairie dog that had nitro strapped to it. Some nefarious person, definitely unscrupulous person, was just strapping nitro to piranha dogs and sending them loose out into the world. Hey, Rook, good to see you. Rook plays in that game as well. Tonight we've got more Torg, not just regular Torg, but more Torg. We're going to be doing the second half of the B-Team game, which is a fun, I don't want to say relief, but a fun difference for me in the fact that I really want to see that piranha dog, Bob, with the nitro on it, if that is possible. That's going to be amazing. You should do that on stream. I would love to tune in and chat with you while that is going on. We're doing the B-Team game, and so what's nice about the B-Team is the Fet 5, which is our typical Torg game that we run every Tuesday night. They are new Storm Knights. They're getting used to the game. They're new players to Torg, most of them. And they are in one spot. It is a rooted game. It is a game that is very much focused on the characters and their interactions with the NPCs in the cities. And we're not leaving Istanbul. That's kind of the encompassing of that game. But there are times where I want to just chug down a gasoline martini, set my mouth ablaze, and go balls to the wall craziness that Torg also encourages. And that's when I summon the B team. These guys have like 165 XP, so they are well into the beta clearance. I think actually at 165, they are in gamma clearance at this point. And they just do the craziest things. They basically pulled a wall of a temple down on themselves because they knew they could survive it and the other guys wouldn't. Istanbul, so that's the running joke, John, of the Torg game, because in Torg, where cosms overlay each other, the northern half of Istanbul has become Tharkold, so kind of a Mad Max meets Hellraiser meets Damnation game, desperate, horrifying body horror version of Istanbul. But on the south side, it is in the Nile Empire, where things are pulp and things are kind of in the past. And so depending on where you're going either to Istanbul or to Constantinople. So it all depends on where your date is waiting for you in my Torg game. So it's always fun to run the B-Team game. We're doing the second part of that tonight. It is, if you want just a short one, like 2-shot introduction to Torg and the craziness that can ensue, go watch last week's B-Team game on our Iconic Production channel and jump over to tonight. We're going to be live at 7:30, and it is a crazy game, and I love running that game for every chance I get. But I actually, Zero Earth Element, who is always in the chat, if you have seen him in the chat, he invited me to play in one of his games, and I got to guest star on Sunday in one of his games. This is the second time I've gotten to play Torg, and so a big thanks to Zero Earth Element. I really appreciate that. That was just a lot of fun. I played Dr. Eli Weslington, a weird scientist from Terra, and he handed me our cards. So if you guys have watched Torg, right, you have the Destiny cards and they can affect things. And so my job was to give the players a bunch of information and then teleport back to Terra with this weird device. But the group was just Gospogs. These plant zombies were attacking the group, and it was looking dire. And so at the end of the session, I played the Martyr card, which is my absolute favorite card in the Torg game. If you ever played with me, which Bob has, if you are willing to sacrifice your character, I'm willing to throw the rules out so that you can get what you want. But Torg actually has a card for it. It's called the Martyr card. You obtain a significant gold, and then your character dies. And I basically reworked the recall device to take a large chunk of the most deadly foes on the map with me, and I shunted us into basically a nether dimension, basically killing all of us, but allowing the group to escape with my notes and my robot. So kind of felt like I did my job, even though it ended my character. And yes, Grom, it is always nice when you can play a game. I am typically the forever GM, and I do like being in that position. But I also enjoy being invited to games, and especially when I can guest star in someone else's game. It's, one shot, I get to jump in, I get to play a game I love, and Earth Element runs a great Torg game. It was fast, it was furious, it was full of fun, and so thank you greatly for that game. All right. Whew, there's a lot going on. My kids' game where I'm running 2E is great. The best moment is it's a lot of fun playing games with young children. There is the term chasing the next high, right? Where it's a reference to the fact that essentially, in a lot of ways, your first experience with a drug is your best, and so for the rest of your addiction, if you will, you are chasing that first experience. I am not equating role-playing games to drug use, but for a lot of us, we're trying to recapture those first moments, that feeling, that first time when you play in a role-playing game and you realize you can do anything you want, you can be anyone you want, you can make friends with the dragon, kill the dragon. You're exploring this world of wonder. And it's very hard for us to recapture that, especially, we were talking a lot about that in the high fantasy story, or deconstruction of the high fantasy genre, because it's all about wonder. How do we get that? Well, I got to tell you, playing with young children, and so Aaron and Zane are the two oldest, and they are 10. So it's like 10, 8, and 7. Playing with them has brought a lot of the wonder of D&D back to me. Every time they encounter a monster for the first time, their eyes light up. They don't know what these things are. Hey, Restar. The fact that Aaron, they simple quest, right? A wizard of one of the orders is asking you to go out and deliver a box. And the group was torn. Do we do this or do we not? And it came down to Aaron's vote. And Aaron's character, Twilight, was like, listen, I'll vote for you. But I want you to tell me all about wizards, because there's been some mystery about the different orders of wizards. And so essentially, she blackmailed an NPC to get all of the world lore that she wanted. And that, it was spontaneous. It was in the moment. She has never played her character devious, but it was wonderful. Like, it was just great. Let's see here. John Doom. Fast, Furious, Fun sounds like Savage Worlds. Speaking of Savage Worlds in kids game, have you seen Dust Bunny's Kickstarter being made? I have not seen the Dust Bunnies Kickstarter. I will go check that out immediately after that. Is that a Savage World setting? Because that sounds amazing. There have been a lot of interesting new kids games that have been coming out, or games kind of focused at kids. Quest. Bob, stop what you're doing. Grabbing your head gnostically. I need to share Quest with you. The layout, the art, is all focused on being good for young kids to read and absorb. Don't stop then. I will, and the PDF is laid out differently than the print book, specifically because they can use the mediums differently. I have to share this with you. I may do a Quest review here because that game is amazing. Let's see here. Grom, Trailer Park Shark Attack, which is just an amazing name. Yeah, no, that makes sense. It is a so is it sort of like a funnel? Like the DCC funnel where you just get a bunch of characters and they just sort of die as they go through. So yeah, it's been fun. It's also, I will be honest, I'm double dipping with that 2E game. I'm running this game for my son and his friends, and it's wonderful. But I'm also using this to prepare all of the lore for my big gaming weekend that I do every October. So the world is taking shape and is being highly influenced by the kids whose imagination are just sort of off the charts. Well, I have to check that out, Grum. Thank you for we'll put links in the show notes to the Kickstarter and to Trailer Park Shark Attack. I have never heard of this game, and I'm greatly appreciative. I always love when people show up with new games and interesting directions that I've never seen. The last game that I'm running is my game Jackals, which if you've been following along at all, you know is very close to my heart. If you like what we do and you want to support us, we do have the Patreon, but another way is if you go on Amazon or on Osprey Games or in DriveThruRPG and grab a copy of Jackals, that also helps support us. Jackals is a Bronze Age fantasy sword and sorcery game, so we're going to talk a little bit about that when we get into our sword and sorcery genre. So, the Jackals game has been going well, but my players have discovered... So, depending on the game that I'm running, the term I use is concentric circles of increasing difficulty. That's sort of what we have in Dungeons and Dragons, right? The sort of the understanding, especially in modern 3.0 and on, that the encounters will be balanced. They'll be rated from easy to deadly, but they'll essentially be balanced. Whereas, so I call that, and I'm stealing this blatantly from, I want to say, the OSR primer. That's combat as sport. And it's actually, I would argue, world design as sport. Older games have combat as war. Things aren't balanced. You need to be as devious and as tricky as you possibly can. There's no such thing as concentric circles of increasing difficulty, because you could very easily at first level decide to go somewhere, and that's where the dragon is, and that's what you encounter. Do you talk? Do you run? Do you die? However, I would say in many settings, the concentric circles make sense, especially in a setting like, say, Jackals, where you have these points of law, and the area around these points of law are well patrolled. So you're not going to encounter some of the really truly terrifying things in the world. They've been pushed into the corners of the world. Well, my group is way off the map. They have gone to a new town that is struggling, this colony of one of the other cities that's being established in the middle of the forest, and they're now even further away from that. So there's several points of light away from where civilization rests. And they encountered, they finally tracked down the person they wanted to attack, and this person is surrounded by nearly 50 Takan. And they're like, well, how are we going to get that? I'm like, that's, my job as the GM is not to provide solutions. My job as the GM is to provide problems and let players figure this out. We talked a little bit about this in several of our campaign clinics, that whether it's a riddle or a puzzle or an encounter or a door, you may want to come up with several answers or ideas to these things, but let your players be creative. In a lot of ways, they're going to approach the problem in a way that you never saw coming. And if you have, this is the only answer, they may get frustrated, you may get frustrated, because you're not holding on as loosely as you can to the game and the story. Remember, if you already have the whole thing planned out, go write a novel. Let your players have some freedom in your setting. Yes, and that is the truth, Rook. Madness Honey is a wonderful thing in Jackals, and I need to bring more of that up. I think the Sanaean culture uses that for a lot of their rites and rituals, and I actually have a Sanaean in there. I'm slowly putting together a magic book for Jackals, which will double the rites for all of the current ritualists, add a new ritualist path for each culture, and then introduce a new culture called the Sanaeans, which are roughly analogous to the Scythians in my world. So, oh, you think Mykonos started an apiary for the honey? I'm okay with that. That sounds like a great plan. So that's currently what's going on in my games. What's going on in your games? I would love to know. I'm one of those weird people, and you can ask Rook, you can ask Escape Artist. I will sit down and listen to your campaign stories. It's why I start every grand campaign off with what's going on in your campaigns, because I want to hear what's going on in Amboria and in the Fading Suns game that Richard is running. I want to hear how Gebrakan is doing and why that is awesome. I love hearing about other people's campaigns, because, well, we as GMs draw our inspiration from what we know and what we encounter. So the more games and more GMs I can encounter, I am really excited, and I always find inspiration in other people's games, including if that game went completely off the rails and crashed and burned. I think of the old demotivational poster with the iceberg on it and says, maybe your life is just there to show other people what not to do. I've had campaigns that have ended like that. Bob has played in campaigns that have ended like that I have run. So, all right, let's see here. John Doom is running a Monster Hunters Club for a small group, which is a Savage Worlds 1980s Kids on Bikes setting. That sounds amazing, and I cannot wait to hear more about it. Seriously, like, I would love for you to share that on the Iconic Discord. John Doom is a new member of the patronage, but is in the Discord all the time. We were talking about Savage Rifts last night, which was great. Padre is not playing right now, but hoping to find a group to play with in a couple of weeks. Good luck, Padre. I would love to hear about any games that you have going. By the way, Calvin and I talked. He has you narrowed down to a couple of people, but it says that it's awesome that you have found the channel, and that's great. It's good to always have you in the channel to riff off of when we talk about ancient Near East cultures and biblical references. I'm glad that you're here. The fact that I get to play games again with Bob is wonderful. Bob, are you still running your 5e game? I feel like you haven't told me you stopped. So Restar, what is Restar doing? You are doing an Atlantean Clan Wars. That's pretty cool. I have run campaigns that have crashed and burned into the ground. Probably the one that I still get gruff from some of my players was our Shadowrun game. So this is how we'll end this up. Had a great Shadowrun game going. I was my mistake was running Shadowrun 4th edition for 9 people at once. It was a great game. We had a lot of stories, a lot of complexity, a lot of great characters, but that game was rough to run for me because Shadowrun is a very crunchy game. I ended up having to outsource all of the subsystems to different people. My buddy Calvin, I will, Padre, I'll let him know that. So Calvin was my hacker. He knew all of the hacking rules. And Mark and Christopher handled all of the combat rules for me. So I just had to know magic. And the game was just, I needed a break. We got, the group was too large. We got to the point where I was like, listen, I'm going to end this campaign soon because the group was so large. And no, it wasn't, it didn't collapse under the preponderance of dice that were being rolled. That was true though. And so I made the announcement, hey, the campaign's going to end soon, and we're going to need to split the group in half. So I made the announcement at the start of the night. And then the group made a series of increasingly bad decisions. They were trying to rescue someone on an airfield that the antagonist had mined the area around the minefield to prevent the group from coming up. And Bob's wife's character just discovered she was a clone and was like wrestling with the fact that did she have a soul, and she was driving the van, and so she's like, I don't care, I drive through the minefield, I can make this. She did not. And so the group's van exploded, even though so they're coming out of this thing knowing that the antagonist had prepared for them. They could not make a soak roll to save their life. I could not critically hit them. My dice were on fire that night, and it ended in a brutal TPK. Calvin's hacker died because the antagonist just offhand throws a knife because he was just trying to prevent Calvin from getting close. Calvin's character was trying to pull people away, and it hit him in the throat and killed him. Like, it was just, so I got accused, and I understand why this accusation was like. I got accused of making that announcement at the start and then TPKing everyone at the end because I wanted the game to end. And it's not the case, but there was some bitterness, and that's okay. I've worked through it with my players, but it was rough. Let's see here. I know I missed. So Grom is running a 5e Eberron campaign. Fantastic. You de-haunted a house. Yeah, no, that sounds like a great game. Eberron feels like it should have some nice, good gothic haunted houses going on in it. That's great. Are you running that one, or are you playing in that one, Grom? Okay, there you go. You're a cleric of the Sovereign. Nice. Very cool. Yeah, sometimes rocks fall and just, break your head. Yeah, my dice were on fire last night. If it wasn't for the chat, and it wasn't for the two players drawing two jokers, it was great. Thank you, by the way, John, for your re-rolling of that damage with the Benny. That was wonderful. So yeah, sometimes your campaigns end in a way you don't want to. Sometimes the players kill the big bag evil guy. Sometimes the players die in a TPK. It's okay. It's a beautiful thing about role-playing games. Sometimes our stories don't end happily, but we all have that shared memory. Going back to the campaign before the Shadowrun game, or several campaigns back, I was running a game for Bob and his wife, and our friend Christopher and his sister. And we had this beautiful Exalted game going on. Exalted 2nd Edition. Another very crunchy game, but with only 4 players, it worked out really well. And I played Bob's heartstrings like a fiddle through that whole campaign. The assassin's cult that he founded and then just kind of left running, killed the group's mentor. Everyone was pissed at him that night. Bob was angry with me. It was wonderful. And that campaign ended with Bob's character killing himself in the Well of Oblivion at the bottom of the world in order to take out the villain, and leaving the rest of the group in hell to fight their way out. It was amazing. Chris, good to see you. Praetorian Panzer is my good friend Chris. He played in that Eberron campaign, and it was amazing. Padre, I want to run Savage Worlds Pathfinder as well. I've read through all of the rule books. I'm on the last part of their Rise of the Rune Lords, and man, it feels like it will be great. I'm really looking forward to getting that to the table. Hopefully, we'll do some more Savage Worlds after the Deadlands game ends. Group seems to like it. We like the rule set, and there's a ton of settings to go out and try. So, yeah, statistically, Padre, you are looking at a 5e game. I mean, this D&D is the lingua franca, which is funny because, as been pointed out before on the show, France is no longer the lingua franca, yet we still refer to it, of the role-playing world. Like it's like the Q-tip of cotton swabs or the Xerox of copiers. People will come to me and talk about playing D&D. I'm like, oh, well, what are you playing? They're like, oh, Call of Cthulhu. And it's like, that is okay. I understand where you're coming from. I did just find out. So Call of Cthulhu is the best-selling game in Japan, and apparently, according to Chaosium, Japanese sales of Call of Cthulhu outsell every other language combined of Call of Cthulhu. Like, that game is huge in Japan. So just a fun fact to end this session on. Yeah, I know, Bob, right? Like, Call of Cthulhu is the #1 game in Japan, and Chaosium, again, sells more Japanese Call of Cthulhu versions of books than every other version of that book in every other language combined. So, oh, Padre, like, seriously, let's grab a cup of coffee and let's talk the Hebrew alphabet. Like, I'm in. Like, that's, after role-playing games, that is my jam. So, we're going to end there for tonight. Rook, I hope you can get your people to try Savage Worlds Pathfinder. Let me know if they do that. So, we will see you all tonight with the B Team. Welcome to Torg's Day on the Iconic Production channel. I'll start that off early. We are going to be running the second half of the B Team game. Can the group escape from the other Mobius base? And are they the reason that the heat has not been turned up on the FET 5? Find out tonight at 7:30 when we run more Torg. It promises to be entertaining at the very least. I don't even know what they have planned. I just know what they have to do to get out of the base. So we'll be back on Thursday. I have a big announcement to make on Thursday. I'm just going to bury the lead there. We will cover that on Thursday. Some very exciting things happening behind the screen, if you will, in the Iconic Production channel and for myself and my wife personally in the gaming space. So we'll make that announcement on Thursday. And I look forward to seeing all of you again on Thursday for more Behind the Screen. Thank you to everyone who's shown up. Thank you to, I don't even know if I can thank everyone. Chris and Bob and John and Padre and Rook and Restar and Grom. Thank you all for showing up and interacting. I'm very excited to see this. Yes, if you guys are at Gen Con this year, come by booth 1830. I will be there. Both Bens will be there. We're going to get to see Alice, the guy, Brian, who plays Alistair, is going to swing by and say hi. Like, this will be just a great time to hang out. And we've got a little bit of Iconic swag to sell. We've got some other things going on. If you like Torg, come there. We will also be selling Torg books in partnership with Ulysses there. So we will be there. Until next time, I will see you on Thursday. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay gaming. And we will be back on Thursday with more Behind the Screen. Thanks, everyone. Have a great one.